Old Valyria. Valyria was the capital city of the once great civilization known as the Valyrian Freehold. The city of Valyria is located on the eastern continent of Essos, southeast of the Free Cities, on the Valyrian Peninsula, a large peninsula extending southwards into the Summer Sea. After its fall, the city is commonly referred to as Old Valyria. Valyria's power was based on the taming and use of dragons in warfare, which they discovered in the chain of volcanoes known as the 14 Fires, which were located around their homeland. Using dragons, Valyria destroyed the armies of opposing nations and conquered a large amount of territory in Essos. Its empire, the Valyrian Freehold, extended through much of the modern Free Cities and even onto the island of Dragonstone in the Narrow Sea. However, Valyria never attempted an invasion of Westeros, which was considered a poor backwater. For over 5,000 years, Valyria was the capital of the greatest civilization mankind had ever seen, the heart of an empire that ruled half the known world. Valyria practiced some unusual customs outlawed in much of the rest of the world, including permitting incest and polygamy. Valyria was destroyed 4 centuries ago in a catastrophic volcanic event known as the Doom of Valyria, which shattered the Valyrian Peninsula, wiped out almost all the dragons in the world and created the much-feared Smoking Sea. The only major family of Valyrian dragon lords to survive the Doom were the Targaryens, who were living on Dragonstone at the time. The Targaryen dragons on their island were the only ones in the entire world to survive the cataclysm. A century after the Doom, Aegon I Targaryen invaded Westeros and conquered almost the entire continent, establishing a dynasty that was to last for 3 centuries. Valyria, also called Old Valyria, is a ruined city in Essos. It is a long-dead city of wonderment, and was once the capital of a great empire called the Valyrian Freehold. It was destroyed by a cataclysmic event known as the Doom of Valyria a century before Aegon's landing. It is the ancestral home of House Targaryen, House Celtigar, and House Velaryon. Location: Valyria was on the Valyrian Peninsula, which extended into the Summer Sea. The Doom of Valyria shattered the peninsula, separating the city of Valyria from the lands of the Long Summer by the Smoking Sea. The city of Valyria is at the center of the largest surviving island, surrounded by cliffs, where the island has broken away from the mainland. Valyria was connected by dragon roads to surrounding cities, such as Tyria. Architecture: Valyria is said to have had topless towers and used sphinxes as decorations. Culture: a common racial characteristic among Valyrians appears to have been purple eyes and hair of silver gold or platinum white. Valyria is said to still hold many treasures from before the Doom, such as Valyrian steel blades and items of magical power. It is said that the glass candles of Old Town were brought there from Valyria 1,000 years before the Doom. History: Valyria was ruled by its dragon lords, led by 2 rival houses that contested for power. House Targaryen, however, was not considered a powerful house. At times, the Lords Freeholder elected archons for temporary leadership. The Valyrians were more than dragon lords. They practiced blood magic and other dark arts, delving deep into the earth for secrets and twisting the flesh of beasts and men to fashion monstrous and unnatural chimeras. It is believed that for these sins the gods in their wrath struck Valyria down. The Valyrians' empire, the Valyrian Freehold, first conquered the old empire of Guise to the east across Slavers Bay, and the Giscari colonies in the Basilisk Isles and Sithorios. Seeking slaves for Valyrian mines, they then conquered and established colonies to the west and north after defeating the Undals and the Rhoynar in Essos. 400 years ago, however, Valyria and its peninsula were shattered by the Doom of Valyria. The dragon lord Orion declared himself Emperor of Valyria, but he and his host disappeared while trying to reclaim the city. In 55 AC, Princess Arya Targaryen claimed Valyrian as her mount and disappeared for more than a year, before reappearing in King's Landing in 56 AC. Grand Maester Benifer and Barth found her to be infested with horrors which burned her from the inside out and killed her, erupting from her body as worms with faces, snakes with hands and other monstrosities. Valyrian was also found to bear wounds and scars seemingly received during their absence. These observations led Barth to the conclusion that Valyrian, uncontrollable by an inexperienced rider such as Arya, flew her to his original home of Valyria, where he was born before the Doom and the flight of the Targaryens, these horrors that infested Arya, he supposed to be remnants of Valyrian experiments with blood magic. After these events, it was declared forbidden for any ship suspected to have visited Valyria to dock in Westeros, or for any inhabitant of Westeros to travel to Valyria. Some years ago Jaerion Lannister journeyed to Valyria to try to recover Bright Roar, the lost Valyrian steel sword of House Lannister, and any other treasures that might have survived the Doom. He did not return and was presumed lost at sea. At some point the Tigers, a political party in Volantis, sent a fleet to reclaim Valyria, but the ships vanished in the Smoking Sea. King Viserys I Targaryen had a passion for Valyrian history, and assembled a scale model of old Valyria in his solar out-of-stone miniatures crafted by masons based on the king's own research into historical records. According to Viserys I, the Valyrian capital city was built inside a volcano, similar to Dragonstone. Valyria's highest nobles lived in the buildings closest to the volcanic face, and the blood mages worked inside a structure called the Anogrian. Viserys Targaryen tells Doria about how the Targaryens flew from Valyria to conquer Westeros. He describes Valyria as the greatest civilization in the history of the world. At Khal Drogo's funeral pyre, as Daenerys Targaryen prepares to walk into the fires to attempt to hatch her dragon eggs, she proclaims to her followers that, "I am Daenerys Stormborn, of the House Targaryen, of the blood of old Valyria. I am the dragon's daughter." When Ser Jorah Mormont visits Kaith in Qarth, she is inking tattoos onto a sailor's back. She says they will protect him as his ship must sail close to the Valyrian coastline, where the Doom still holds sway. Upon receiving a fresh-forged Valyrian steel sword from his father, Jaime Lannister remarks that a new Valyrian steel hasn't been produced since the Doom of Valyria. Tywin explains that the sword, Oathkeeper, was actually reforged from a pre-existing Valyrian steel sword, Ice. Stannis Baratheon mentions the colony of stone men dwelling in Valyria, where he was advised to send his daughter, Shireen, when she was infected with grayscale as a child. However, he refused and instructed every single maester and healer he could find to save his daughter, to spare her such a fate. Jorah Mormont and Tyrion Lannister cross the ruins on their way to Meereen to see Daenerys. After a time contemplating the way the Valyrians, once the greatest civilization in the world, failed as a result of the Doom, they see Drogon, one of the 3 remaining dragons flying over them, one of the last remnants of the once mighty Valyrian culture. They are then attacked by the Stone Men and, although Jorah manages to fight them off and save Tyrion, he is touched and infected with grayscale. In the books. In the A Song of Ice and Fire novels, this empire began its rise to power over 5,000 years ago when the humble shepherd communities of Valyria found dragon lairs in nearby volcanoes, the 14 Fires. Finding a way of binding the dragons to their will, the Lords Freeholder of Valyria overran the neighboring empire of Guise, throwing it down in defeat 5 times before annexing it fully. Eventually Valyria's empire stretched for thousands of miles along the coasts of Essos and far inland, expanding into the far western coastal regions where it overran the lands watered by the Rhoyne River, displacing the native Rhoynar people to Westeros, where they settled in Dorne, and annexed or established 8 powerful colony states. Refugees from these states founded the city of Braavos as a secret refuge from the Valyrians. The Valyrians also established a stronghold on the island of Dragonstone, possibly to facilitate trade with the then-independent 7 kingdoms. Valyria was utterly destroyed in a cataclysmic volcanic event known as the Doom approximately 4 centuries ago. The 14 fires erupted simultaneously, while lava cracked and poured from hills. This event shattered the Valyrian peninsula, leaving it a storm-racked chain of islands surrounded by boiling seas emitting poisonous fumes, and wiped out almost every dragon in the Western world, bar only the dragons of the Targaryens on Dragonstone. In the aftermath of the Doom, the 8 colony states threw off their Valyrian overlords and became the free cities, eventually joining one another in trade and commerce links, along with the secret city of Braavos to the far north. The Targaryens survived and launched a devastating invasion of Westeros almost 3 centuries ago, eventually uniting the entire continent under their control. Another key remnant of the time of Valyria are artifacts, particularly weapons made of Valyrian steel. Weapons of Valyrian steel are incredibly sharp, never need maintenance, and have unusual dark colors flowing along the blade. There are over 200 such weapons in Westeros, mostly serving as family heirlooms, such as the Stark Greatsword, Ice, and the Mormont Longsword, Longclaw. Author George R. R. Martin has stated that the Valyrian Freehold is essentially his medieval world's equivalent of the Roman Republic, a vast, now fallen empire on such a grand scale and possessed of such advanced technologies, relative to their time, that peoples living in the Dark Age following its collapse view it as awesome and the stuff of legends. High Valyrian, their language, is treated as a lore language essentially like Latin. Similarly, the free cities that are descended from Valyria's colonies and conquests are like medieval France, Italy, or Spain. Their languages are stated to be Bastard Valyrian, in the process of mutating into separate languages akin to the Romance languages of our world, i.e. descended from High Valyrian just as French and Italian mutated and diverged from Latin. Unlike Rome, Valyria never turned into an empire even up to the time of the Doom, and was more similar to the earlier Roman Republic, a collection of powerful and wealthy aristocratic families, one of which were the Targaryens, jointly shared power. According to the TV series official pronunciation guide developed for the cast and crew, Valyria is pronounced /Valyria, as opposed to Valyria.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.